Good evening, everybody. I'm Kelly Clenchey, Superintendent of Schools. Thank you so much for coming out this evening. And we're going to show 10 slides this evening, and we want to make sure we have time to answer any questions that you may have. With us this evening is Mary Lynn Mercy from Studio G Architects, Chuck Adams in the blue shirt back there with our OPM company, and Steve Venuti, who's a town resident and on FinCom. And Steve has been instrumental in working through the financial part of the project that we're going to talk about today. Sean Ahern is also here from the school committee, and Elaine Settleman as well. So welcome. As you can see from the first slide, we're going to talk about 4 things today: post-Shaker Lane School, cost and tax implications, what if the project doesn't pass, and the next steps, and obviously a question and answer period. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mary Lee.
Thank you, Kelly. So I'm going to start off with a quick run-through of just what the proposed school looks like. Are there any abutters here? Nice, good to see you. If you have any specific questions that relate more specifically to your property, I'm happy to stick around afterwards to answer any questions. But basically, the new school is intended to be built on the upper field behind the existing Shaker Lane. We're going to use, for most of the traffic, the existing entrance off of Goldsmith. And we're bringing all of the traffic onto the site, so there's not going to be that neighborhood congestion anymore. We're getting a much longer queuing line to get those cars out of there. We're adding a new site access for buses and deliveries that's on Shaker Lane as well. And then we are replacing, when the existing building comes down, we're replacing the fields that you have right now. Currently on the upper field, there's a Little League field and a softball field. So we're showing those replaced in kind. And then the lower field is it's going to be kind of messed up when all the construction happens. We're going to be putting geothermal wells there, and we will restore it to its new condition as we leave. All right, these are some renderings of what it could look like, what it will look like. As you can see, very sort of small scale, friendly scale for children. Large, substantial play area in the back, and just using really durable, really cost-efficient materials. And then inside the building, education has really changed a lot, especially in the last 10 to 20 years. And there are so many more supports that need to be provided for students, whether it's a learning disability or just extra help with math. And so we've provided a lot of, we're calling them small group rooms, which are these little yellow boxes here, which are attached to 2 classrooms. So every pair of classrooms has one in between there. And that's really so kids can just quickly go into that classroom, get whatever extra help they need, and then go right back to their classroom instead of hiking all the way across the school. I mean, they're so small that any traveling they do takes time out of their learning. So having them right here with the classrooms and near their peers for as much of the day as possible really helps these kids. We also have this collaborative space out in the middle of all the classrooms. Instead of having a corridor that's really only used for circulation, by enlarging that space, we're able to get so much more educational stuff in there. So we'll have areas for every once in a while, if the entire grade level needs to gather, maybe if they're seeing some sort of presentation from somebody outside the school, there's enough room for them to gather. But there's also enough room for some of them to be doing messy activities at the sinks, like art or some sort of science project. And then areas for kids to pin up and show their work and talk about what they've been working on. So I will pass it to Steve to talk about the money.
The money.
The money.
Thank you. Steve Venuti, I'm on the Finance Committee and the Shaker Lane School Building Committee.
Well, I think the batteries died.
not-
Let me go get some new batteries.
Thank you.
Okay.
So the presentation tonight is kind of a scaled down thing from what we have been doing, but we can answer any questions you have in the question and answer session. And we have the backup of all the slides that we're going to be using at town meeting also. This slide basically shows the different estimates that we've had for this project along the way. And as information has gotten better, our estimates have also gotten better. So we started back in October. We were looking at $104 million school, and the estimated tax impact was around $1,800 first year to the residents. If we go all the way down to September of '25, you can see where it stands right now. It's at $719 first year, worst year, as I like to say. It's around $60 per month. And the school is $98.08 million. It's a lot of money, we understand that. That's what construction costs today. It's really up there. We have a slide that maybe I can have Mary Lee put up after the fact. It shows the different school buildings that are being built through the MSBA and the cost per square foot. And this is one of the lowest ones that is out there right now for the MSBA. There's a little different impact statement. We're looking at a bond amount right at the top of the screen of $50,725,000. That $98 million building that we're going to have. We're going to receive a grant from the Massachusetts School Building Authority for about $38 million, which brings down that bond amount, brings down the cost of the project. So anything that we can do to bring down that bond amount, we're going to try to do. So $38 million right off the top brings that down. We're also we established a stabilization fund probably about 2 or 3 years ago at town meeting. We've been able to put some money in each budget cycle, and we think we can put in between now and the final construction costs in FY29 or so. We think we can put $7 million in. So that's going to bring down that bond amount a little bit more. And then we also, when we issue a bond, we receive a bond premium. That's just how the bond market works. That's like a principal payment rate off the top. That's another $2 million that we're going to have. So all those offsets brings it down to that $50,725,000. And if we're able to put more into stabilization in our savings account for the next couple of years, we will. Because the lower we can get that, the less interest we need to pay, the less interest, the less total payment it is, less total payment is the less tax impact we're going to all have to face. As you can see in that last column, $719 first year, worst year. It's because of the way we issue a bond, we make principal payments each year. And as we do principal payments, the interest comes down. So it should decrease each year. We're also putting in the second to last column on the right, we're calling it debt exclusion stabilization account. And that's something that the Select Board, Finance Committee, and School Committee have all talked to and agreed to in a policy. That we're going to try and put as much money as possible after construction towards this project. So we're taking inside levy money to help pay for this outside debt. Because this project is a debt exclusion override. It's a two-step process. First process is a town meeting when we're going to authorize the borrowing. And that's on October 28th. Okay, it's Article 1, so we can get in, talk about that, and that'll be that. Second step is a ballot vote on the following Saturday. So November 1st, polls are open, just as normal down at the middle school, 8 to 8. And you have to vote to accept the debt exclusion override. And we can show those slides of what those motions and articles look like and what that ballot vote looks like after the presentation's done. So you can see as it goes along, 719 first year, worst year, averages in the first 5 years of 716. Total over the 20 years, because this is 20-year debt issuance that we're going to be doing. The way a debt exclusion override works is once that debt and bond is paid off, it's gone. It's not a regular operational override that stays around forever. 20 years, we pay off the bond, there is no more tax impact for this project. Okay? So right now we're looking at just under $12,000. Now these numbers are based on assumptions. These numbers are based on assumptions for residential value. interest rate of this bond, that, all these things could change as we move forward over the next 5 years until we get to the point where we issue this bond. But this is the best information that we have right now. If this is based on FY25 values, FY26 values will be coming out first part of November, so it won't be in time for town meeting. The state has to certify the values for the town. So depending on what happens, these numbers could change up or down. It's depending on the values, but that's going to happen each year over the next 5 years until we start placing this bond. The other thing we need to mention is that what's called new growth is not included in these assumptions that we're doing. So what's new growth? The project at 550 King Street, the old IBM buildings. Sorry, the old IBM buildings. It's going to be a big residential development, big commercial development, and a hotel. We just don't know when. So we kind of know the phases that the builder and the owner is going to put through. We just don't know when those things are going to be built. We don't know what the value of those things are going to be. So it wouldn't be prudent for us to include it in these assumptions. But as value is built, these bond payments that we're going to have are spread over a bigger base. So these numbers should come down. Okay? Graphically, you can see the blue line, how it comes down over time. It kind of plateaus in certain levels because that's the money that we're putting away in that savings account, that debt exclusion stabilization fund. It's kind of stabilizing those payments. So we're pegging something, 5 years out in the first time, then maybe 6 years out in the next one. So you can see it kind of plateaus and it kind of stays constant over the life. And the very end, if you look around 2042, it kind of stays flat till 2049 because we're pegging the interest, the cost out there, and the town is putting that money in to level off those payments. Okay? And of course, we're talking about big tax impacts. The town has several options available for tax assistance for those who qualify. There's 9 different programs that are listed there. You can meet with the assessor's department or the Elder and Human Services department, and they'll certainly be able to help you and guide you along as to what is the best alternative for you. Again, you have to qualify for the program. So, what if? That's if the building passes at both the ballot and a town meeting. If it doesn't pass at one of those things, we're here in this school. We have to just continue and operate this school. We already know from the MSBA and the school district that this school cannot meet the educational needs of the students. It's too small. It's just not built for today's education, as Dr. Clenchey said. And if this was a tour, you'd be able to look in the classrooms. I know when I was young and I went to classrooms, there was desks all in a row and the teacher stood up in front. There's not a single room in this building that looks like that. That's not the way education is today. So what we'd have to do, since this building is small, the school department, we're jumping ahead with this slide, but the school department has said that around 11 different modular classrooms would help alleviate some of the crowding in this building. Modular classrooms, 11 of those things, cost $6 million. We could offset some of that cost through that stabilization money that we've built up, around $3 million or so. But it's a $6 million investment that we would need to continue operating this building. One of the things that we've done, is we're following a timeline with the MSBA. And the MSBA right now, we're in a 10-year time frame. is we've applied to the MSBA back in 2020 for this building, and it's not going to be completed until 2030. So if it doesn't pass, we have the option to reapply to the MSBA. Now, if all goes well and they take us on the first crack, we're looking at another 10 years out, 10 years added to the construction costs at around 5% per year compounded. We're looking at about $161 million building by that point in time. So this $98 million turns into $161 million by that point. And we thought we had sticker shock at the 98. Imagine what it's going to be when we get a bill for 161. This building simply cannot house the students that we have. There's 414 students in this facility right now. As we move along, if something happens to this building, these are old systems we have here. If something gives away in one of those systems, we had a study done by an independent company that lists 9 different things that could possibly go wrong. There's $2.73 million bogey that we have to deal with. And that's 30% of the assessed value of this building. And once we cross that in repairs, then we have to do a full code upgrade to this building. Now, a full code upgrade, we had another estimate done, was $44 million for a code upgrade. Code upgrade is not a renovation. It still doesn't solve the problems here at the school. So we would have construction costs of $44 million. I'm not at the slide yet, but I'll keep talking. $44 million. That construction can't happen over the summer. So the students would have to leave this building. They couldn't stay on these grounds because it's a construction zone right now. So we'd have to move them somewhere. The school department has estimated 22 modular classrooms could house 414 students. They could go to Russell Street and put the trailers there, and the Shaker Lane kids could be there, or it could be a situation where the school department starts shifting classrooms, taking some of the Russell Street kids and putting them into the middle school to fit the Shaker Lane kids in Russell Street, and then taking some of the middle school kids, putting them into the high school, and put the modulars up at the high school. It's options, but at that point in time, you're affecting 1,700 students now in the school system, and not just the 414 that are in Shaker Lane right now. The code upgrade with the modulars, $44 million, plus the $12 million, plus a couple of offsets, we could get the bond down to $51 million. And it would be a 10-year bond that we would issue. And we would do a 10-year bond simply because it doesn't solve the issues in this school. And we would have to still go to the MSBA and try and reapply to get a building done. So if we issued that bond to bring this building up to code for 20 years, and then we also went to build a new school, we'd be doubling up on that debt exclusion after 10 years. And nobody wants to see that. New construction, we talked about that bond. It would be a 20-year bond at just a little over $50 million. And you can see down the bottom the tax impacts on that first year. We talked about the $700 for the new building as opposed to $1,400 for that code upgrade with the modular classrooms. So as somebody said at one of these meetings that we've had before, it's throwing good money after a bad situation. It doesn't solve the issues that we have with this building.
So to continue on a bit, if we were to do nothing, it's a real difficult decision as to what we should do. Of course, the school will remain open. We are approximately 35,000 square feet short of what is required to educate 414 students, pre-K to 2. And Michelle King, our principal, is with us tonight, and her staff have done an incredible job of doing what they can to to meet the needs of our students. We can do a lot more. We're innovative, but there are many things that we can't do because of these limitations. And 21st century learning requires more space. Our students, as Steve pointed out, they don't learn in rows or desks. It's active learning, learning through play, learning through groups. Our curriculum in our subject areas is designed to stretch the knowledge of all of our students. If they find a topic that they're really interested in, they can pursue that and learn more. So if we kept the school as is and tried to make up for some of the space inadequacies, we would move 11 portables in. That's a pretty conservative number, by the way. 11,000 square feet. The portable is about 1,000 square foot classroom. That would help, but it's still not going to change any internal configuration of the Shaker Lane School to offer the programming that we would like to be able to offer that aligns with 21st century learning. Now, let's say that we did that. And all of a sudden we had a system failure in this school. If it totals $2.73 million, we're forced to do a complete code upgrade, which would mean we'd have to shut the school down, move the students somewhere else, most likely portables, and we don't have any classrooms available in our other 3 schools. And if we had moved the 11 portables in, we'd have to move them somewhere else because the school would not be accessible for at least a year, probably a year and a half to 2 years. So it's a real dilemma. Do we just wait and then panic, which isn't a good idea, or do we just start dispersing students throughout the district in portable classrooms? Now, our youngest learners, mobility is not as easy as older learners, and every minute of the day counts in terms of learning. So if we went back to the 11 portables, there would be some distance that our students would have to walk every day for the cafeteria, for the gym, for the special services that they receive, and it would take time out of our day. So, as your superintendent, I don't see the what-if option going very well because we're working on borrowed time. The first section of this school was built in 1959. It's a long time ago. Schools nowadays are built for 50 years, and the requirements are a lot different than they were in 1959. So when you look at what would happen if we had to do something, even with a code upgrade, the school wouldn't be big enough. It wouldn't be reconfigured. We still wouldn't meet our students' needs in terms of 21st century learning. Approximate tax bill for doing that would be almost $1,500 a year. And that money is something that isn't going to be recouped because it's not fixing the issue. At some point in time, we're going to need to build a new Shaker Lane School. So that money is buying us some time, but not a solution. It's something that we have to do to continue to do what we can to meet the needs of all of our students in our district. Building a new school, worst year, would be $719 a year. So it's about half the price. And then you have a new school built for 50 years. When you build a new school with MSBA, we have to ensure that there's an area that we can add another wing to the school for expansion. I believe, I think most of you in this room believe, that the enrollment of Littleton Public Schools is going to increase through time. Pretty hard to determine when that's going to happen, but it will happen. So we are in a good spot in all of our schools because they've all been built through MSBA funding in terms of grants and help. So we can add a wing to each one of the 3 other schools that we have. So we have 2 important dates coming up. October 28th is the fall town meeting, at which time the citizens of Littleton will vote on a number of articles, including the article that you decide whether or not, as a community, whether we move forward with the new Shaker Lane School, or we are faced with doing the option of what if. November 1st, it requires 2 votes. There's a ballot, and it's a ballot vote, and that ballot vote will determine the fate of this building project, assuming that the fall town meeting vote passes. So this is the point in time that we're at. As Steve pointed out, by the time this school would be built, it's over 10 years that we've been doing this. So please keep in mind that it would be at least another 10 years before a project probably was started. MSBA has so many needs that they're trying to meet in the Commonwealth, and very few school districts are accepted every year. They have contributed money to this project already, and they're looking for communities that are going to be on board from day one to the end of the 10-year period. So I'm not super confident at this time that we would be at the front of the line when we applied for a second time, because there are so many needs in school districts in the state of Massachusetts and within the nation. So I'm going to leave you with that. So 2 important dates: October 28th, fall town meeting, and November 1st is the ballot vote. And now I'd like to open it up to question and answers, unless Michelle would like to offer something
I think
else.
someone was looking for a tour. We do have, sorry.
I think someone was looking for a tour tonight, and it's just that we did not allow enough time for that, but we do have one more tour on Tuesday, October 21st to see the building at 6:30, and then a quick Q&A afterwards, and then we have another forum similar to this that you need to attend. It's the same information, but if you do want to see the building, we invite you back on Tuesday, October 21st at 6:30.
Before we get to questions and answers, I just want to quickly show you the article for town meeting. This is what is going to be printed in the warrant. The booklets, town meeting booklets, being printed now. They should arrive at your house in a few weeks. I think if you have absentee ballots or mail-in ballots, if you signed up for that, you're probably going to be receiving those if you haven't already. And we'll talk about the ballots in just a second, but this is the warrant. And when we're dealing with the MSBA, we have to play by their rules. $138 million of MSBA's money, we play by their rules, and they've been doing this a long time, and there's a lot of language in here that is specific to the MSBA. Plus, it's a borrowing authorization, so there's a lot of legal language in it also. So the main stuff is in bold, but we can eliminate all that, and let's just look at the article itself. First line, the town appropriates an amount of $99,704,000. And you're saying, Steve, you just told me that the building only cost $98 million. So again, we're playing by the MSBA rules, and the MSBA says that we have to authorize in borrowing the entire project. And the entire project includes the feasibility study that we've already done, we've already paid for in cash through our savings account that the town had. But again, the MSBA requires us to put the entire project in, so we need to authorize that entire amount. It says we're authorizing $99.7 million to pay the cost of design, construction, equipment, and so on at the Shaker Lane Elementary School, and it's going to have a useful life of 50 years. So as Kelly said, it's a 50-year building that we're going to be building. This is the MSBA's way of saying, town of Littleton, don't come knocking on our door again for 50 years if you're going to talk about Shaker Lane. So this is how they're doing it. Down toward the bottom, underlined, is probably the most important piece of this article. It says, we're going to authorize this borrowing provided that any appropriation is subject to and contingent upon an affirmative vote of the town to exempt this borrowing from Proposition 2.5. So that's the debt exclusion piece. So town meeting authorizes this borrowing through a 2/3 vote, but that vote is contingent upon the ballot vote that's happening on the Saturday, November 1st. Okay? Town meeting can authorize it. It could fail at the ballot, and it's gone. Then we're into a modular situation. It has to pass both things. The Saturday ballot is a majority vote, whereas town meeting is a 2/3 vote. Okay. The last piece of it just says that we can reduce that 99 million by any grants that we receive or any bond premium that we receive. And that's the borrowing language. That's usually in borrowing articles. Also printed in the town meeting booklet is going to be a description of this article. We can walk through that very quickly. Get the legalese out of it. And again, it says that we authorize 99.7 million to fund all costs. However, we've already done a little over 1 million, 1,085,000 for this feasibility study. So we're going to take the 99, we're going to less the $1 million for the feasibility study. We've already identified $539,000 worth of project cuts from the original budget that was done. Unfortunately, again, with the MSBA, we're playing by their rules. We identified those cuts after the fact, after we've already submitted the project to the MSBA, and they wouldn't let us change that. So that 99 million is also being reduced by that $539,000. So we subtract all that out, we're left with 98,079,951 is what the project is. That's what the construction costs for this building will be. And that's what we're going to town meeting actually to authorize, is that $98 million. We're receiving $38 million from the MSBA, and $59.9 million is the town's responsibility. And we can show that through these numbers. Don't concern yourself with all the numbers. Just look at the top, that little bold number, that's the 98,079 that we just talked about. I'm subtracting out the MSBA for the 38. Comes to the town's responsibility for that $59 million. I talked a little bit about the savings account that the town has. We're going to be able to put aside, by our best guess, $7.1 million in our savings accounts to bring down the cost of that bond as much as we can. So that's $7.1 million. We have bond premium of $2,054,000. That's how we come to our $50.7 million bond that we'll be issuing. So a $98 million school will be issuing a bond for $50 million. Again, our goal is to get that number down as much as possible. Okay, so important things, town meeting, 2/3 vote. It's a borrowing authorization with a ballot vote Saturday, November 1st. It's simple majority at that point in time. So this is the question that will be on the ballot at the polls on Saturday, November 1st. And it's, again, this is a requirement from the state. There's no price in there, there's no dollar amount or anything. It just says, do you want to vote to accept from Proposition 2.5 the Shaker Lane School Building Project? So that's what the town is authorizing with that vote, is that debt exclusion override. So it's very plain vanilla language that's there, but it has a big impact for the town. Okay? Really, do you have anything else? We can open up to questions, please.
I don't have a question. I do support this. However, I think people should look more. I was on the library building project committee. And when we were building it, I remember Tom Clancy, who was the fire chief at the time, coming to me and saying, just wait, in about a year, all that fancy stuff is going to fail. And he said the fire station, a whole bunch of things, fancy new technology failed. At the library, you know, it opened up, it was beautiful, it was wonderful, the lights go on by themselves. Oh, no, they don't. Oh, yes, they do. No, they don't. And you know, when you turn lights on like that, you know, one of the bathrooms overflowed. I mean, it's been like many, many problems, and some of them have been recurring problems, and they have to keep getting paid for and paid for and paid for over and over. The other thing is reuse stuff. I was appalled at all the stuff the library threw away. Shelving that they couldn't have reused, furniture. I mean, you're probably thinking these are crappy chairs, but you know what? They were. You know, I just think that as a town, we need to look more carefully at what we're doing. I think these projects are necessary, but get rid of the bells and whistles. It's not necessary to have all this fancy stuff that is then going to fail and then it has to get paid for.
Yeah, I love hearing stories like that because I want to know what went wrong and how we can prevent it from going wrong. I was just speaking to a construction manager a couple weeks ago, and this project is going to be a construction management project, not design bid build, which basically means there's a lot of collaboration between the builder and the design team and the owner, and so it's a good thing for everybody. And what ended up happening on another school is the new school was built, everybody moved in, and then during the year following, when the existing school was demolished and all the site work was done, the construction manager was still on site. And so you would see them around the halls and you could catch them and be like, hey, we got a light over here that's not working. And they would just go fix it. Everything in the building will be warranted for a full year to come back and fix it at no cost. Every new project is going to have a learning curve, right? You got to learn how to use the new light system, the new mechanical system. So we make sure that there's training for that. We record any sessions so that people who are new, hired in the future, can watch those training videos and not just be lost on the new system. And then we also do after 3 years, after it's been occupied for 3 years, there's what's called an occupancy evaluation. What's it called? Post-occupancy evaluation, thank you, it escaped me. Which basically, we ask people, how's it going? What do your energy bills look like? How are you doing with maintenance? And so there is a lot of support built into this because it's a construction manager project and because it's an MSBA project.
Howdy. Thank you guys for doing this, and I realize that I showed up at the last one you've been doing for a year, but I really appreciate you guys putting this all together. You talked about this is a 50-year project. Can you share with me or share with us how this school is built for growth? So we're going to have 50 years of growth at Shaker Lane, and we don't have to build another Shaker Lane for 50 years.
So right now, I believe the enrollment is 399 students in grades K through 2, plus about 25 pre-K, is that right? Yes. And so the new school is sized for 435 K to 2 students, so that's 36 more than what they have right now. And also there's enough room for up to 60 pre-K students in 3 classrooms plus a special ed classroom. In addition to that, there is space. Oops. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but right here at this area, there is space to do an addition of at least 4 classrooms. Every MSBA project requires you to show where an addition like that could go. There's also a stair right there, so we wouldn't need to worry about elevator access or adding another stair, so it's really the least expensive way to do an addition. So with that being said, 4 classrooms worth of students is almost 100 kids, plus 36 more than what you have right now. I know there's been some concern about the new housing development that's coming in. I looked at the numbers for that, of the sizes of units that they're building. It's 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. The 1 and 2 bedrooms don't generally tend to have children in them. The 3 bedroom units, there are 78 or 79 of those. So assuming every single one of those has at least 1 kid, how many of them are at the age level that would be at this school, right? So it really is not very many. So there is quite a lot of growth built into this before you ever need to get to the point of doing the addition. And then if you do reach that point, then you can do the addition and make it well past the years before you need to go back to the MSBA.
Just so summary, so it's built for 36 more than, give or take plus or minus we have, and then 4 classrooms is 100-ish additional students. Okay.
That's correct.
Is 36 a lot, Michelle? Like, I don't know.
Enrollment over the past few years has been down. It's been down across Massachusetts. I think people aren't having 4 and 5 children as they have in the past, and that's some of the numbers that the MSBA gave us, is they look at our attrition with our female birth rate here in town. Of course, there's always movement, but if you ask, survey the surrounding towns, enrollment is down. It's down in Westford, it's down in Chelmsford, it's down here. This year in our kindergarten classroom, we have 16. Granted, we added a classroom. We also took in 7 school choice children. So I'm hopeful, because I don't think we're having 5, 6 families anymore. It's a family of 1 or 2.
Yep.
3.
Cool. Thanks.
Hopeful.
So we are Mutual Littleton. So everybody else here probably knows the answer to this question. Provided everything goes as I think we're hoping it goes, when would you actually start construction?
That's a really good question. I think we are looking at maybe a year and a half from now, because we still have to, if it passes the vote, then we are still working on design. And as we do that, we'll now have the construction manager's input, so we can look at less expensive ways to do things, less expensive products to use, or less expensive ways to procure a variety of things. And then once we have all that settled, then we do the construction documents. That takes quite a while. The schedule that we have now has made a lot of assumptions, but once we get a construction manager on board, they'll have it down to the day. The construction manager also intends to meet with abutters and address their concerns and give them a heads up as to what might be coming. There are a lot of measures in place to do like dust control and make sure that there's as little impact as possible to the people living nearby. I think we've got 18 months or so of actual construction on the building, and then we've got another year of landscape. A lot of that just has to do with when the planting season happens.
Thank you. Nice presentation, and I'm glad I came and supported. I have a little bit of advice. You mentioned that the building was built in 1959. There was another addition done. I wouldn't gloss over that, because you're trying to sell the project to a lot of people in town. There's going to be a lot of hands raised to say, well, my kids blah, blah. So I would add that somehow to the conversation. My kids were here about 25 years ago. The other piece of advice is they weren't in rows. I was in a row, and the desks were nailed to the ground. But my kids, when they were here, there were no rows. So I would kind of work on that part of your presentation. I mean, just advice. So for you, I'm a landscape architect, and I'm curious about the playground part, because when there were playgrounds designed 20 years ago, there was a big problem. I designed over 100, and I tried to give my input, and people from the PTSA just went ahead and put these designs in. I think it was on day 1. I don't know how many kids you remember. They broke their collarbones, their arms, because all the equipment was too high for little kids, and I tried to tell them that. And so are you designing the playground? How is that going to be handled?
Yeah, that's a great question. She's asked me about the playground and who is designing it. We have a landscape architect as one of our consultants, and we intend to do visioning session with people from the town, so parents, anybody who has other expertise, maybe even get some of the children involved. That'd be fun. But we definitely want to make it safe. I have a daughter who broke her arm on a piece of play equipment, so I really feel their pain. But yes, the landscape architect is Warner Larson, but they were recently acquired by INEG.
Yeah.
Yeah, so stay tuned for visioning sessions for
Yeah,
that.
that's good. I know what happened with the BTSA group. They used Annie O'Brien and Sons, the manufacturers, and they just said, go ahead, do whatever. And that's not the way to do it. So you have a good landscape architect.
How about you?
That's good. Thank you.
Good. Love the creative financing. Can you talk about, like, what is I mean, the stabilization is our choice, right? We could choose to spend that $7 million on a rocket ship to the moon, or, defer the school bond. How is the FinCom thinking about establishing this as a priority for the town, so that 10 years from now we don't say, well, let's put the other $3.5 million towards something else? How are we setting this up for a 20-year plan to spend that $7 million?
So anything that we do is contingent on town meeting. So the Finance Committee, Select Board, we can say we'd like to put money into this, but again, the town meeting vote, it's their decision what to do. Our plan and our best estimates, and we're going to relook at this each budget cycle, is how much we can put to this project, both pre-construction and after construction, in the two different stabilization accounts that I mentioned. Select Board, Finance Committee, School Committee voted a policy back in April that basically said we will do whatever we can to bring down that amount of debt to the townspeople through that debt exclusion stabilization account. And we've committed to funding at least $500,000 per year to that project. And that total came out to around $10.7 million that we're going to have to reduce that tax impact after the bond is issued. And that's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd like to do it before the bond to bring down the total payment, but we just don't have the cash to do that. Still putting $7 million away over a 4 or 5 year period is a pretty good feat. Now, we certainly can't guarantee what future boards will do. And hopefully I'm not doing this much longer. I've done it long enough. So we wrote this policy with the intent that this is our plan today, and we hope that those future boards follow that plan. And we've laid it out that this is our goal, and it should be the minimum. That's the thought process. It should be the minimum that we put aside. And again, we put that out there in a policy. It's out on the town's website. It's up to town meeting when that time comes, and we're not putting that money aside. For the townspeople to say, what happened?
Yep.
Make the boards explain it at that point in time. What happened? Why did you do what you did? Okay.
I think it'd be important just to add to, and Karen can mention this, we do have the support at the moment from FinCom, School Committee, Finance Committee, PMC. Can't remember. Did they vote on it? Did they vote on it as well? So at the moment, like you said, these boards support it. So that was just information that's come through our, the Yes for Littleton campaign, but I thought I'd share.
Cool.
The only thing I would add, and it's not exclusive to the Shaker Lane article, this is something that we've been working on and that we're going to continue to work on, is logistics for town meeting and making it as accessible as we can for everybody. There's no one time where everyone in town of voting age is going to be able to gather in the same place. But to the extent that we can do it, we are trying. So, for example, we know for a fact there will not be a football game at Alumni Field that night. They're taking up all the parking spots. We have created an overflow room in the cafeteria that's going to be family friendly. There's going to be activities in the back for kids to keep themselves busy while their parents are participating in town meeting. Kids are always welcome in the gymnasium as well. This is just a designated spot where maybe you don't have to worry that your toddler's running around in circles behind you. The other thing that we did is we moved this article to Article 1. So this will be the first thing that we talk about. I think one of the big things that's happened in the past that has really discouraged people is talking about the most important article in their minds until, 11 o'clock at night. At some point, you got to take the kids home, no matter how many, coloring books you've brought. So we're hoping that Article 1 is going to be first. It will be first, and that we'll be able to get a vote on that quickly relative to other past town meetings. If anybody has suggestions for other things that would help with getting folks to town meeting and making it easier for them to be there, let me know. I would love to hear from you. Thank you.
All right, this data is from the NSBA website. This is a comparison of where the estimates have come in versus where the actual bid amounts have come in. And in the last year, in every instance, the estimate has been higher than the bid. So this is great news for any projects that are going to be bid in the near future. Because we have a construction manager, we're looking at potentially doing some, it's called early packages, which basically means we don't have to wait until we've finished all the drawings. We could do some of the drawings and let them get started on the site stuff. Do some more drawings and let them get started on the structure. And so the actual start of some of this might be a lot sooner than we think. So great news coming out of the MSBA. It's really thrilled to see this. I hope you are too. So this is updated information on where Littleton is in comparison to other school projects that are happening right now. If you saw the previous version of this, you saw Littleton at the bottom, except for North Adams, which is really an outlier. What this is showing is there are a few new school projects that have come into the mix that were not showing on the previous version of this, and they're kind of all over the place. But what I think is most striking is this one in green, the Situate School here. This very faint green square right here is where the estimate came in. And then this green square down here is where the bid came in. And on this chart, this is the only one that's been bid in recent history. So that's a huge change. It went from almost $900 a square foot down to, oh, that number is wrong. It's not 895. It's now closer to 700 and looks like 40-ish. So, yeah, so great news.
Can you show the design one where it shows like where the kindergarten classrooms are versus where the other, I think that'll help with the question about expansion. Michelle, I think you said that there are like 5 classrooms per grade right now?
Right now we have 6.
6?
And 7 in K, and their new construction has 1 additional classroom. So it'll house a whole other classroom.
For each grade.
All right, so over here on the left is the first floor. The main entry is here at this pink arrow. And on the first floor, we have the youngest. So we have pre-K in a wing all to themselves with the shortest travel distance from the front door because they're the smallest, they have the shortest legs. And then kindergarten is also on the first floor. And then on the second grade, we have on the second floor, we have first grade and second grade. And we have a double height media center in the middle, really tying everything together, putting literacy at the heart of the school, both literally and figuratively. We have a cafeteria and a gym located just off the front lobby, making it really easy to close down the rest of the school and have those available for public use outside of school hours. I'm happy to answer your questions, yeah.
I'm just reflecting on that question you had asked before. Do you think 38 is a lot? Well, I always said it was plenty. But then 38, this equates to like 20 children per classroom. So where we're getting the number 38 is interesting because we have a whole nother classroom, which is about 20 children. So you're talking 60 additional children, 1 in each grade level. Granted, we could have twins or multiple, but I mean, I feel like this configuration is great. And you might have thought a little while ago when I was like 38, that's not going to work, Michelle. You could have said that.
Right, I don't do education, right? Like 36 seems like a small number,
Yeah,
but you're putting in
it's
perspective
really
of
not.
human
It's a
beings.
whole nother
Yeah.
classroom.
Yeah.
So it's 20 more little bodies. That makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I like the stage in between the cafeteria and the gym. I don't know how it's going to work, but I like it.
There's one at the Florence First School next door in Groton that they use all the time. It allows them to have an assembly for the entire school, because the little kids can just sit in the gym and hear the principal or anybody else speak. Or there can be an actual, some sort of production on the stage into the cafeteria. So if they're doing choir or if they're doing little skits or anything else that you have them do.
And last summer, we toured 5 or 6 new schools, and a handful of them, most of them, had the adjoining ones. It was neat.
What will happen to this building?
So it'll be demolished, and in its place, we'll get some playing fields to replace the fields that it is taking over. So right now, there's 2 fields up here where the new school is shown. So we're just going to take those and replace them in kind down here. If you see this dash line, that's the existing school. And then over here, this is where the new leaching fields are supposed to go, and we can have just little youth soccer fields on top of that. I don't believe we could really do a baseball field on top of it because one of these rectangles is about 5 feet higher than the other rectangle, but it'd be perfect for soccer.
So just to go back to Andy's original question, what happens with all of the furnishings, the new mini splits and all that? Just in the dumpster, or where does all of this stuff go?
No, there are recycling goals. We recycle as much as possible. We write it into the contract with the construction manager to make sure that we're not wasting. There's LEED. LEED is an organization that keeps track of how sustainable building projects are. This has to achieve at least LEED Silver, which is the second tier, the second most difficult tier to achieve. And part of that is making sure that we recycle as much as possible from the existing building.
And keep it in town or recycle it to somebody else? Or-
I'm not sure. The construction manager could help. Yeah.
They'll just throw in, you should make sure there's temporary irrigation on your landscape, even though you might lose a lead point, better than lose a couple points.
The center has already lost at least 1 tree.
That is a shame.
Easy to do temporary.
Not good
If you
weather.
get around the
Planting
irrigation
and-
and lead point.
Yeah, no, well, Florence First School, I reference that because it's the project that I most recently worked on. They had all the irrigation and they ended up getting LEED Gold, so I know it's definitely possible. Yeah.
Okay, I think we're good.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.